All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the stream, man. Welcome to another episode of Hotep History Live. I am your host, President Hotep Dubes, representing Hotep Nation. Hope you guys have had a wonderful day. I know I have. I hope you guys learned some today. I know I have. Come on in here. Let's get comfortable. Let's relax. You know, we're gonna get into it today. Had a good day today. Had a good day today. Um, I'm currently, I think I said this yesterday, but I'm currently aggregating media in conjunction with my video editor. Shout out to Kia. Shout out to Kia, man. She volunteered to help me bring episode 5 to life. Now, y'all know if y'all have been following my streams, I have been just lauding, just going crazy, you know what I'm saying? Over episode 5. And just some little backstory. I think I told y'all before. But as y'all saw, I was on a roll. Like pretty much every 2 weeks, 3 weeks that I was about a month, right? Every month I was dropping an episode of the Hotep History series 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were going swimmingly. They were getting better with every interval. You feel me? I was on a roll. And while I was doing episode 5, which is the Black American class and cultural clashes, and it just details the history between, just the class differences between Black Americans dating all the way back to the 16th and 17th century, all the way up to, of course, the latter part of the 20th century. And y'all, like I said, it took me about a month to get all of this stuff because I'm not aggregating or pulling this stuff out of my, what I'm saying, out of my ass, pause. So it's like I'm really doing on the ground research. Like I'm reading studies, I'm reading books and all that other stuff. I tell y'all all of the time, for every one sentence that I write in my scripts for my scripted material, that's a whole page, if not, a whole chapter of a book that I'm reading or an entire study that I'm making. So I make sure that it's backed by research. I make sure it's backed by scholarship because it's important for me to let you guys know just how vast and deep our history is. And it's better for me to, show you guys through primary sources and things of that nature. So it's extremely important. So it took me about a month to aggregate all of these different materials, pictures, excerpts from studies and books, video clips. Like there was a video clip that I had where it was just a bunch of kids at a swimming hole that I've never seen before. Like it was just amazing stuff. And the video, when it's time to be exported onto the hard drive, or in my case the SD drive, it was a large file. We were talking almost 20 gigs of material as far as the video was concerned. The transitions, graphics, all that other stuff. And me being just fast and not looking at what I was doing, I accidentally deleted all of the assets, all of the materials, like all of the clips, all of the pictures, all of the screenshots, the newspaper, digital newspaper clippings and stuff like that. And it really just brought me back to square one. And that was back in April. You feel me? Shout out to y'all. Come on in. You know what I'm saying? I'll get to the chat in just a second. So I accidentally deleted all of these files. Devastated me. I ain't gonna lie. I was super tight because I worked so hard on it and I wanted you guys to see it. It wasn't even about me for real. Like I worked hard on it so you guys could be able to get that good, knowledge from it. To let you guys know that, there's certain times that, you may have a belief in something and has been, it flies in the face of the mainstream histories and stuff like that. And a lot of people tend to feel like anti-black for some of the things that they believe or whatever. And people talk about how Black Americans are not a monolith and stuff like that, but those be like the most monolithic people when they say it. So Kia, one of my first Patreon subscribers, make sure you guys are subscribing. Patreon.com/Hotep History. I was doing a space for the first book club that we did in July. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff in the month of August, so sorry that we didn't do the book club for this month. But anyway, So she was like, yo, listen, I do video editing and stuff like that. So she reached out and just let me know that, hey, I asked her like, hey, can you help me out with episode 5? She was, more than happy to. So me and her have been corresponding back and forth, just making sure that we're working together. She sent me back a transcription of all of the words that I said, like the entire script that I wrote and said in the audio. So I just been helping her along getting that media. So episode 5 is on the way, guys. I can't wait for you guys to see it. So that's where we're at with episode 5. What else? What else? Today was a good day for me. Today was a good day. I started off well, very well. I woke up in a good mood, which is always good. Very high spirits lately. I can't lie. Like my spirits have been very high, and I appreciate that. Like for all of the forces that God has brought into my life, you dig, as of recent, I'm extremely appreciative of it. And it just sometimes you just need to be reminded just how impactful and great that you are, and it's appreciative that you have these different forces come into your life, remind you of all of that stuff, and it just reminds you to just show gratitude and be grateful for where you've how far you've come. I've been president of Hotep Nation since 2015, 10 years running. Extremely proud of the work that I've done pushing Hotep online and offline. And so, just woke up with just like a high sense of, gratitude, very high spirits. And then that just, carried on into my day, just being productive and stuff like that. Got a good workout in, got some good research in. So it's just been an overall, wonderful experience. And so today is going to be a good day. Has been a good day rather, and it's going to be a good evening as well. So I hope you guys have had similar days. I hope you guys, like I said, always learning something new. You owe it to yourself to learn something new. I've added new books to the digital library, so I'm going to be tapping into those things. I haven't even looked really deeply into them. The titles jumped out at me. I actually showed it a little bit last night on stream. It was like the music and highly musical people. I'll show you a little bit of that today in the stream too. So that's pretty much been my day. Just being productive, just learning, making sure that I'm, better than yesterday. That's all it's about. Just making sure that you showing up. And I tell people all the time, just keep showing up. No matter what, keep showing up. I know it may be ugly in the beginning. I know your form may not be the best. Just keep showing up. I promise you, the work that you put in is going to, garner results, and it's going to, bear fruit. So that's my, introductory encouragement that I want to leave with you guys. I know I get to ranting and all this other stuff, but please believe that I do this to make sure that you guys are actually well versed in the history that I talk about. Black American history specifically has been weaponized against Americans, but Black Americans specifically, to where they use it as a weapon. We showed that as an example when a whole bunch of people was showing whipped slaves and stuff like that to be able to dunk on Trump. So again, I've noticed the weaponization of Black American history, and it's I took up the task to be able to right those wrongs, and being able to instill all of that inspiration, motivation, and education that comes along with the ancestors, and that's what it's about. And I think that's another reason why this is so different, because so many, like, what I've noticed is the detachment between the teacher and the material, to where they're just rattling off a bunch of historical facts or events or something like that. There isn't any immersion, there isn't any connection with the material, and I think that's just by virtue, like there's going to just be people who don't understand the ancestors, and it's like, we have our own culture in a way to where it's like this kind of like unspoken understandings. It's not like anybody that's not Black American can't listen in on it or learn something, but when it comes down to the material itself, there are going to be certain behaviors that you read about that is like, oh wow, like I understand that, what I'm saying, my granny did something similar, or my mom does something similar. Like, it's just a cultural thing. And I think a lot of people are a little bit insecure about their history when it's being told through the lens of somebody that really doesn't come from where you come from. And I'm not talking about like a particular place, but I'm literally talking about your ethnicity, like your actual, lineage and stuff like that. It's a connective tissue that Black Americans have in this country. We've been here for centuries. And the stories that we get told from children, that our parents were told when they were children, like all of this stuff is connective tissue that kind of brings us together. And that's the reason why I go so hard for history. You know, last night when I was going into my rant, I'm telling y'all, like, if most black Americans or all black Americans were able to, you know, get the history or view history in the same way that I do, I truly believe that we would see a completely different black America. As a matter of fact, I would go on to say that we would just see a modernized version of what the ancestors were doing. You dig what I'm saying? Like, you would see a lot more self-sufficiency. You would see a lot more, you know, self-governance. You would see a lot more being close to the constitutional way of the country, as opposed to, you know, arbitrary laws and things like that. Maj Toure was talking about that in the space. Like, the ancestors understood common law, natural law, and human rights. That's what you know, their introduction to, as far as American politics and stuff like that, comes from. Like, the ancestors understood the Constitution and they understood their rights, and that's all they wanted. See, it gets misconstrued with integration and racism and all these other things that kind of blurs the line as it pertains to what the ancestors want, because you're going to have particular people who are not of the lineage, who are not of, you know, the ethnicity or the understanding of the ethnicity, and they're going to put their own spin on it. And that's the reason why you'll have a bunch of people like, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois, his parents, like, I think he's like mixed, and then the black side of his family is Haitian. Like I tell you guys about how the influx of communism inside of Black America was due to a bunch of Caribbean people. We had Black Americans as well, but a bunch of European and Caribbean people. And so, and I was talking to my man about this, and he was saying, like, when it even came down to the introduction of communism, it was like, at the time, that seemed like a viable way to go, just due to the way that capitalism was working. And I've noticed that when I go as hard as I do on communism, it's almost like I'm sitting here saying that capitalism has no faults at all. And so that's not true whatsoever. But just to make that clear, so my man, shout out to HJ, we was having a conversation, and he was telling me about the Ludlow massacre, where a bunch of capitalists basically killed a bunch of workers because they were on strike. About 21 people were killed. So if you're seeing these types of things and somebody's approaching you with, hey, yo, like, communism is the way to go, socialism is the way to go, and it's going to be a little bit more attractive, especially when you're talking to somebody that's coming from a different place. You want to be able to hear them out. And even to this very day, like, you'll have people who are reading, you know, books written by, you know, Africans or Europeans or Asians and stuff like that, as it pertains to how society should be run and stuff like, and stuff like that. So when it comes to that, yo, it was just attractive to those people at the time. So my job is to make sure that I'm giving the 360 view of our lineage. And so a lot of people just don't have it. And unfortunately, a lot of Black Americans don't have it either. So I tasked myself to be able to just, again, you know, bring back what I call the ancestral Black American ethos. And it's extremely important to me. And I think it should be, you know, on the top of everybody's mind, to be able to reconfigure what they were actually told and the narratives that they were actually told. Because it's like, it's not even so much that you were lied to, is that it's more like lying by omission. It's more about, like, being able to shape a particular narrative so you can walk away with a particular moral from that story. And it's just not what the ancestors want. It's just antithetical to what the ancestors wanted. So I'm just here to bring it back. I remember I was shitting on or critiquing the W.E.B. Du Bois. So I was critiquing the Great Migration, and this lady, you know, hopped in my mentions, she had a lot of followers and stuff like that, and she called what I do, revisionist history, as a pejorative. And I think a lot of people don't understand that being a revisionist inside of history is not antithetical to history. It's a part of history. It's a part of the study of it. Like, being a revisionist is literally that, re-envisioning what history, you know, is being taught to you. And that's all it is. So while you guys are being taught one thing, I'm going to tell you what was going on actually in the background, or what the people on the ground were actually saying. And that's why we always talk about what? Primary sources. Primary sources. So that way you don't even have to guess or try to figure out what was actually happening. Just read it from the people that was on the ground. and then also applying that historical context, because you know, that's altogether important as well. And so that brings me to one of the uh, one of the subjects that we're going to be talking about tonight, which is basically just debunking a lot of, well, not a lot, just some of the historical myths that we've been told. I tell you guys all of the time about how I worked for my man Have, right, when I was 13 years old and all that other stuff. And he always had me reading different books. He had me read the autobiography of Malcolm X. He had me read Dr. Francis Cress Welson's book, The ISIS Papers. He had me read just a bunch of books. And one of the things that he had me read was, of course, the Willie Lynch letter. Now, at the time, I was 13 years old, so I didn't know any better. And somebody asked me on an AMA not too long ago, like, yo, is the Willie Lynch letter real? So I knew the answer when he asked me, but I wanted to make sure that I, was able to prove it. So we're gonna get into that. To get into the actual the origin of the Willie Lynch letter. It is not real, ladies and gentlemen. There is no. I haven't seen any historical record of a man by the name of Willie Lynch who went around teaching slave masters how to, make the perfect slave. And it actually came from this man right here. So in this book, it's called The Death of the Willie Lynch Speech, Exposing the Myth. It's actually, an African professor by the name of Manu Ampim. And he exposes the fact that this man actually wrote wrote the Willie Lynch letter. This is the guy who actually wrote it, a man by the name of Kwabinya F. Ashanti, PhD, LCAP. And this was spread throughout the 90s. And again, this is before the internet for real. So a lot of historical myths got spread throughout the late 20th century, especially because there was a connection between the Black Power movement, communism, and Pan-Africanism. During this time, Pan-Africanism has been around since the early 20th century, and we'll talk about that, the whole story about Pan-Africanism on another stream, probably next week or something like that. And a lot of people, that's where you got the, a lot of dudes, like Black American dudes, and, women too, wearing like dashikis and African print and wearing the, the African medallions and stuff like that, the motherland and so on and so forth. And again, despite me being, a proud Black American, I don't disparage, Africans at all, Caribbean people at all. Like, I do think that there is room for fellowship, and it should be room for fellowship, but it shouldn't be at the expense of my own culture. And that's my own thing. Like we have our own cultures. Throughout, Africa, there's thousands of tribes. I don't know how many different languages. Like, you'll have some scholars who believe that Africa is too diverse, and it makes it easier to splinter and divide and conquer and stuff like that. I don't really have an opinion on it because I haven't done much research on Africa at all. Like, I focus on Black America. So during this time, it was basically everybody was looking for a new way. And so when you have all of these Pan-Africanists and you have communists and all these different political ideologies, coming out of or being introduced to Black America, you're going to see a lot of like anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, and all this other stuff, and conflating the fact that white people are the majority population in America to it just being inherently racist all of the time, every time. And so based upon that, we want to do the complete opposite of that. And because a lot of the people that were influencers and stuff like that at this time, like your Stokely Carmichaels, like I said, CLR James, Hubert Harrison in a different era as far as the 20th century, Claudia Jones. I listed these people before. They're coming from other people. They're coming from other people that don't really, they're coming from people that don't come from America. And again, their relationship to colonialism is much different than ours. So while, yes, we're dealing with racism, we're dealing with discrimination, we're dealing with oppression and stuff like that. And because of that, they were able to conflate our struggles with theirs, and it wasn't the same. Their struggle with, Great Britain is not, the same struggle that we had in America. And some similarities, obviously, but it wasn't one to one. It wasn't one to one. And we do have our own unique struggles. So just, setting, like I said, setting the tone, or setting the setting of the time to give you guys the historical context to where black Americans would even be open to this type of stuff, the myths and all of that, because we're embracing Africa. We're embracing our diasporic, brothers and sisters and stuff like that, especially with the influx of them coming all throughout the 20th century, starting around like the 1910s, 1920s, Ellis Island, all these different things. Hubert Harrison came to the United States, I want to say in 1905. Cyril Briggs came around that same time. So it's a lot of people coming over here and pushing what they're pushing. And that's the mold in Black America from inside of the 20th century, starting from the early to the late 20th century. So now you make it to the 90s, and yeah, you have still remnants of it. And this guy was able to, put the Willie Lynch letter into the Black American zeitgeist. And it's interesting because the Willie Lynch letter doesn't even speak to like Africa or anything like that. He's specifically talking about, I think they said the Willie Lynch letter or the speech took place in Virginia or something like that. I don't totally remember. And so that's circulating in the 90s. And a lot of people, especially in like millennials, we look at this stuff like, oh, like this had to have been, old. This had to have been around since the days of slavery, but it wasn't. And so me being a 13, 14-year-old reading the Willie Lynch letter, like, I believe that it was absolutely real. So this is one of the ones that really, got to us. Let me see if I can find it. See if the Google demons can Reddit, no, can show it. The Willie Lynch speech, whatever. Let's see. In the making of a slave. Oh, this is just gonna be selling it. So yeah, the Willie Lynch speech, also known as the Willie Lynch letter, is an address purportedly delivered by a William Lynch or Willie Lynch to an audience on the bank of James River in Virginia in 1712 regarding control of slaves within the colony. In recent years, it's been widely exposed as a hoax. So even Wikipedia was on it. You dig? The reputed author William Lynch identifies himself as the master of a modest plantation in the British West Indies, who has been summoned to the Virginia colony by local slave owners to advise them on problems they've been having in managing their slaves. So yeah, I was trying to see if I can get like just some excerpts from it, because he was talking about a lot of the stuff. So it makes sense too, right? Like when he's detailing it, if you know that it's being if you know that this is written in the 1990s, slavery has been over for over 100 years at this point. So he can just go back and just look at the tactics and the methods of the slave owners during this time, because they got into buck breaking and in like making the woman not respect the man based upon raping the man and beating the man in front of the women and children and all that other stuff. So it's like these are going to be tactics that they did use. And if you are reading or writing in 1990, you could just list all of these things and now purported like, oh, this is the reason why, because like it says that he wrote this in or this happened in 1712. So this is the reason why it's very important. So no, the Willie Lynch letter is not real. Even Wikipedia says it's a hoax. It's not real. You dig? It was written by this man. So the it being a hoax, I knew, but I didn't know that this man is the one who read it. So this is the true author of the Willie Lynch letter. And what is it? Psychotechnology of brainwashing, Afrocentric reversal and healing of the lingering consequences of ancestral enslavement. So you see, this is just, grifting in the 1990s. And please, like when it comes down to racial grifting, Afrocentric grifting, this goes a long way. Like I said, it starts all the way to me in the early 20th century, but it's picked up in fever pitch in the 60s and all of that. So yeah, just got to be careful of that. All right. So that was the Willie Lynch letter is not real, beloveds. It never was real. It's a hoax. You know, you've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray. There was another one too that I briefly touched on, but it bears to flesh it out. And we're gonna get to a lot of this stuff too. It's a lot of old stuff. I deleted all of the old bookmarks that I'm not gonna be touching on. But where is the other one? And this woman, I don't need to watch her video. We can get her out of here too. Let me check the chat real quick. Let's see. Let's see what we got here in the chat. So my man Bert is in the building. A2R says, "Hey, didn't know you were on YouTube also." Okay, new sub. Shout out to you for subbing, bro. Thank you, thank you. Sammy is in the building. Sammy, welcome back, brother. I was wondering where you was at, man. I was wondering. I hope you good. He says, "Yes, sir. What's good, dudes? You killed it on Sonny's Corner a few days back, by the way. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Sonny Johnson, my sister. Shout out to my sister Sonny Johnson. You dig? She's always been somebody who's given me and lended me her platform for years now. I've been going on Sonny's Corner for years now, and anytime I come on to Sonny's Corner around 2:00 on Saturdays if I do it. Sonny can hit me up at 1:52 and ask me to come on the show, and she know I'm gonna tell her yes. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, I rarely tell Sonny no. You know what I'm saying? I think I've only told Sonny no once. And that's just my sister, man. She's always looked out for me. She's always lended her platform to me. She calls me her favorite historian. So shout out to my big sister, Sonny, man. It's always love, always love. She was at Hotep Con when I was out there in Vegas. It was super dope. Hopefully you guys is pulling up the Hotep Con this year. You dig? Hope I see y'all there. Let's see what we got. Nikki with the 100 emojis. Shout out. Sammy says, "Hey man, we don't mind the crack pot, bro. You always give us full plate anyway." Appreciate it. Memphis, yo, shout out to Memphis. I'm glad I'm seeing a lot of names that I'm used to seeing on the streams. Welcome back, Memphis. Thank you, Bert. As always. Bert asks, Pan-Africanism is an op. Pan-Africanism, I'm not going to say it's an op, but I will say that it's not for us as Black Americans. I one of my old streams, and we can pull it up here, but in one of my old streams, I read an article from the ancestors in the newspaper, and they were just basically writing like, yo, directly responding to the pushing of Pan-Africanism. All right, so here we go. Look at these grifters. These are our modern day grifters here. These bums. Of course, they about to make it hard for me. But Pan-Africanism is not necessarily an op. It's just not for us. And the reason why, like, the ancestors, they directly responded to it by saying, like, yo, we have too much going on in America to be worried about Pan-Africanism. We still are, establishing ourselves here. We're still doing what we need to do. I don't even understand how I search for Pan-Africanism and all of this other stuff is coming up. It's like, Elon, man, you got to get this together. But it's just not a top priority for us. Connecting with Africa is cool. I always say that I'm down for, fellowship on mutual benefit, period. If we can come together, for mutual benefit, I'm with it. And that goes for anybody. Europeans, Asians, Africans, it doesn't matter. But to think that I'm going to forsake my country, if you think I'm going to forsake me being a proud American in the name of Pan-Africanism, that's never going to happen. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud Black American, period. Point blank. There is no other way to explain it. At the end of the day, there were a lot of people inside of the movement that wanted to guilt trip people into hating America, and that's just all it is. Like that's all they were trying to do, especially because of capitalism. Like they were anti-capitalist. So you had like Stokely Carmichael, Angela Davis, these people who were just like anti-America or anti-American government at the very least, and they wanted you to forsake it. They wanted you to, quote unquote, go back to Africa. They wanted you to, use your 9 to 5 American dollars to help build Africa and all this other stuff. And it's like, yo, listen, bro, like we have issues on the ground in Black America that we need to be addressing. We need to, master the art of group economics or remaster the art of group economics. We have so many different things that we have to worry about in America before we can be worried about what's going on in your country or in your nation inside of Africa. There's no disrespect to Africa, and I would never disrespect Africa. My name is literally Hotep. My entire, nation is named Hotep. You feel me? That is an ancient Kemetic word, meaning peace, to be at rest, satisfaction. So I do have a reverence for Africa. Don't ever get it twisted. I do have a deep respect for Africa. However, I am a Black American man, and so much of what I deem a problem in Black America is stemmed from, of course, being ahistorical, not knowing your ancestors, not knowing where you come from truly, not knowing all of the great things that the ancestors did. So before I am going to lend a hand to, another continent, I am going to primarily focus on Black America. And it's extremely important, especially in this climate. I even said, this is one of my things that says, I'll trade and fellowship with any nation based upon mutual benefit, but I'm not a Pan-African. I'm not forsaking my homeland for an ideal that's not even practiced in African nations right now. And he told me about the African Union and all this other stuff. And it's like, yo, that's cool. But again, there's a lot that you guys as an entire continent can do to be able to, help yourselves and stuff like that. And then once Black Americans help themselves to the point that we have the surplus, that we have the extra time and we have the excess, then I have absolutely no problem. I feel like we should have trade lines in between Black America and Africa, getting, whatever materials, commodities, whatever we can trade. I'm with that, but it has to be on mutual benefit. And so many of the people who push even the modern thing like Akon, right? We just seen Akon City go up in smoke. Akon City was a big nothing burger, and he was largely looking for Black Americans specifically to invest in it. He was grifting in America to get American dollars to fund this project, and it didn't go anywhere. So I'm not going to, encourage Black Americans to do that. I would encourage Black Americans to make sure that you have Black-owned grocery stores, Black-owned banks, Black-owned schools, Black-owned, towns again. That's what I would be talking about. And then once we establish those things, get ourselves in a good position economically, politically, socially, culturally, then we can be like, yo, listen, we can have trade posts in between Detroit and Africa, Harlem and Africa, Chicago and Miami and Houston and all these different places, and being able to, fellowship and trade and do all of these dope things, because I do think Africa has a lot to offer the world. As you can see, it gets raped and pillaged every single day. There are no alligators in Europe, but there's a whole bunch of, luxury European brands who are selling ostrich and alligator and like all of these different materials for thousands upon thousands of dollars, and they don't even have, those animals are not even indigenous to that continent. So there are things, that we can do in fellowship and trade on. But right now, again, I am, focusing on the development of Black America. So if there are African nations that are mutually trying to not only build themselves up, but do what they can to help build Black America up, let's talk. Let's talk shop. You feel me? I'm with it. I'm all the way with it. But again, I'm not going to forsake where I come from. I'm not going to forsake my homeland. I'm not going to forsake my ancestors who, lived, killed, and died here to be able to, create this new identity at all. So shout out to Africa, but it's still big America over here, man. And that's just how I'm carrying it. And that's how I'm always going to carry it. But I wish I could find it. And it would take me forever to scroll through my media because I tweet so many pictures and stuff like that. But it was an article that basically was just talking about like, yo, listen, we need to focus on America first, and then we'll be able to lend a hand to Africa and stuff like that. And again, mutual benefit is exactly what it sounds like. Both of us, you feel me? Both of us have to be able to benefit from this. And so many times that just wasn't the case. So many times, like you lift up the tag on them dashikis, it says made in China. You dig? So it's just like it's not going to be what I think is mutually beneficial. So that's that. So shout out to my Africans out there. So let's get back to the bookmarks. The next one was this right here. This was actually what sparked me wanting to debunk lies. So you guys may not know this, right? And I'm glad it's in meme form, because when things are in meme form, that means it's like set in. Like you're able to, you got the actual story, and then you were able to make a meme out of it. That means it's settled into your mind. You can conceptualize it in different ways. You can make jokes out of it and stuff like that. So the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, of course, was created off the back of the killing of Leo Frank. Leo Frank was an accused and convicted rapist. He raped a young white girl. And Leo Frank famously blamed a black man for the rape. He tried to frame a black man for the rape, and the Ku Klux Klan didn't even believe him. And this is when was the ADL founded? 1913. So this is in 1913, so in pretty much the top of the 20th century. And Leo Frank thought that, like, yo, there's no way that they're gonna believe a black man over me, and that's exactly what happened. And so Leo Frank was arrested, sent to jail, and the Ku Klux Klan kidnapped him or took him out of the jail and strung him up. His death is what sparked the creation of the Anti-Defamation League. And that's always been like, as far as people who are critical of the ADL and the supporters of the ADL, that was like, it's like a big, just it's a real big asterisk next to, the integrity of the organization, right? So now you have these people who are trying to rewrite the history. So this young woman says, it's really scary how anti-Semitism has changed this story recently. The KKK did not side with a black guy. They used the black guy. Oh, and that black guy's lawyer was later like, quote, yeah, Leo Frank was innocent and my client definitely did it. So it's going to be a lot of this when you're talking about your academics, that intellectual class that I talk about. I talk about the 5, different classes. You have the professional, the commercial, the industrial, the political, and the intellectual, right? So the intellectual class, they pride themselves on being the smartest people in the room. That's where you get a lot of your snooty people, a lot of your stuck-up people and stuff like that, to where they have these airs about them that makes them or has them believe that they're better than the rest. It really comes from the doctrine of the talented 10th that we talk about with W.E.B. Du Bois being the entire, thesis behind it. W.E.B. Du Bois says that, the black American race needs to be led by what he considered exceptional men. Basically, the best and brightest of black America needs to lead the 90%. So the 10% leads the 90%. It just so happens that this same model was being used in Soviet Russia, to where 10% of the Russian population controlled the 90%. And that's where you get your rations, your quote unquote equal distribution and all this other stuff. And also the gulags and, the lack of private ownership, and everything is owned by the state, things like that. So this class of people, they want to be the leaders of the race. They want to be leaders of the entire demographic, and they believe that despite not really building anything or having anything tangible for people to actually walk into, like buildings that they can walk into, institutions that they can actually use, jobs that they can actually, offer these people, they just want to be smart for a living. And it's not lost on me that I'm smart for a living. However, the things that I'm actually tangibly building, like Hotep Nation and stuff like that, people can actually tap into our homeschooling initiative. People can actually, tap in to other like physical things that we do. We have a bunch of like the Men of Order. We have things that we have for people that they can tangibly use. We have Hotep Health. We got Strong Dad. We have, all of our ancillary and our partners like Black Guns Matter and all of the classes that they have. We have King Randall that I am inducting into Hotep Nation when as far as comes to the X for Boys school. Like there are tangible things that we are creating and have created and collaborated with that is actually actively, helping people. And even when it goes back to my old page of being, financially literate and stuff like that, and teaching that, like that's important. Knowing how to budget, knowing how to, have your money make money. That's extremely important because there's so many people right now just making a lot of money, okay, and spending it and have and are not investing it the way they should. So it's very important that that's a thing. You feel me? So I say all of that to say you intellectualize all of these things and you try to outsmart the truth, and you just can't. You can't outsmart the truth. The truth is what it was. Okay, this Leo Frank story has been corroborated by people on the ground, primary source that said that he committed this act. He blamed it on a black man. The white people that he tried to turn against this black man, the janitor, wasn't having it, and they hung him. They lynched him. So that is another lie. Leo Frank was not innocent, and it's disheartening that a black woman, a modern day, contemporary black woman, is spewing this stuff just for the sake of being somebody that's having a gotcha moment. And that's really all that this is. And to retroactively demonize a black man who's been long dead, obviously this is 1913. Well, he could have still been alive, but that's just disheartening. And I've seen too much of that. A lot of people use history to demonize black men. There was this black female teacher. She's an actual teacher, and she posted on her Facebook. My man, my youngin Mike, he had sent it to me, and she posted on her Facebook that Frederick Douglass was like, he basically treated his first wife bad. His first wife, I want to say her name was Mary. I could be wrong though. That he was like, mistreating her. She, did all of these things. He didn't care about her and all this other stuff. Like just demonizing Frederick Douglass. Like, and she was so proud of herself. Like she literally said in the post, "I love how smart I am." It's like, that's what I mean about the intellectual class. Let me see if I can pull that up because, it's not in my bookmarks. But yeah, she was just like going super hard about like demonizing Frederick Douglass. Like who demonizes Frederick Douglass other than the ops? Like who does that? I love how smart. Let's see if I can find it. What the hell? This is ridiculous. It's not even from me. None of these are my tweets. I don't like it. Oh, here we go. This is it right here. So she says, now, should I tell these kids how this man wouldn't teach his black wife how to read and then moves his white mistress in the house with his wife? Mad question marks. Or nah. Anna helps him escape slavery and get free because she was free. And how did he repay her? By making sure she stayed stuck while he's parlaying with a white woman. I'm a chill, but whew, even the men's in history was less than. She literally said even the men in history were less than, to like the 5th degree, and then ends it with, I love how smart I am. Now, I covered her face up because I didn't want to dox her. I didn't want her to, get in trouble and stuff like that, because I do still believe in free speech, in Hotepistan, there ain't no free speech for real, but in America there is. And so, she's free to post whatever she wants on the internet. You dig what I'm saying? But this is, again, what I be talking about, where people are demonizing black men who have done way more. for Black America than them in the contemporary sense. And she just completely lied about this. So when you read the book, and definitely when you read his speeches and stuff like that, Frederick Douglass, his wife, okay, excuse me, Anna. I think Mary was the second wife. So Anna didn't know how to read or write, and by the time she was at a particular age, and Frederick Douglass was trying to help her read and write, she couldn't really grasp it, and she told him that it was fine, just tell me things, and I'll be able to understand. And when it came down to the circles that Frederick was in, because he's going to different places, he's going to Congress, he's talking to abolitionists, he's doing all of this hobnobbing with a bunch of different people, she felt a little bit out of place because she wasn't as intellectual or wasn't able to keep up. So Frederick actually did a lot to make her feel comfortable about this. So one of the things that he did was she ran the show. So she's able to, that this teacher or whatever is able to use the things that she was actually good at, being able to save the money, help him get free, all of these other things that she was integral in Frederick's life doing. She's using that again as basically saying that she was doing this because she was being used by Frederick, right? And when it comes down to his second wife, right, the white woman, Anna knew that she was dying, and they were already friends. All three of them were already friends, and she basically told Anna to be like, "Yo, listen, just look after my husband, while I'm gone, and all this other stuff." And that's what they did. You dig? And so it wasn't that he moved her in. That didn't happen. Like these things, like the way that she's purporting it, she's just bastardizing the story. This is not what happened at all. They had a loving marriage, a loving relationship. Frederick was gone a lot because he was doing the work. If you are somebody who's working like for the people and you are outside like that, yes, you're going to be away from home a lot. Out of the 365 days of the year, you might be gone for 300 days, 250 days. That's just the truth of the matter. So yes, she's just bastardizing the actual truth. So again, I'm a chill, but even the men's in history was less than. Like, this is again the demonization of Black men in history, just because they can. And they get to remix it. And this is why I will always tell y'all to seek out primary sources no matter what. You dig what I'm saying? So let's get into the chat real quick. It's a lot of chat activity this evening. Thank you guys for participating. I really, really, really appreciate it. Let's see what we got. Kaiwan says, I love your video communism, or I guess a video about communism. You don't have any communists because I study communism with a woman named Caroline Caitlin Borisenko. Okay. Caitlin and Sammy says Caitlin Borisenko was on Sonny's Corner on Sirius XM a while back. Cool. Nikki says being able to rewrite history in that way is scary. Absolutely, especially because when it's accepted. So what happens is a lot of these people who are lying on the ancestors in this way, it's based upon their own bitterness, and we all know misery loves company. So if you're able to bastardize a particular story or somebody's history, and all you're going to do is just garner more bitter people. Like these women who already don't even like Black men, don't even have any respect for Black men, hearing this is like, oh yeah, I knew Frederick Douglass was a piece of shit. Like I knew Booker T. Washington was a piece of shit. And it's like, that's just your own bias in the contemporary sense. And a lot of people don't understand historical context. They'll put a lot of today's sensibilities on to the ancestors. They'll put a lot of their sensibilities onto shit like the Aunt Jemima, you know what I'm saying, brand. Aunt Jemima is based upon a woman named Nancy Green. Nancy Green loved her role. Like that's just what it was. Like she was the face of the syrup brand. Same thing with Uncle Ben. And so because racist people are able to enjoy these particular products, that automatically means you got to throw it out. You dig? And it's just such a backward way of thinking. And so for me, I like to present the historical context because it's important. It's extremely important to know what was going on at the time. You dig? Like, even when it comes to minstrel shows, when you start talking about black entertainers, a lot of them got their start in minstrel shows, and we're actually gonna. I got a story for y'all about that. It's a pretty dope story. I wrote about it, or I tweeted about it last year. It got some traction, but again, last year I had like maybe a quarter, maybe half of the followers that I have now, so it didn't get much traction. But we're gonna talk about it tonight. So they're approaching this stuff with 2025 sensibility. Same thing we just seen with Cracker Barrel. Like, they're whitewashing the history, and it's so funny. These be the people that talk about the how against whitewashing they are. But if you notice, the only thing that they want to keep intact is all of the the narratives that makes black Americans look like second class citizens. Now we need to keep, the brutality that the ancestors suffered in the forefront. We don't really give a fuck about any of the things that they built, but we need to make sure that we keep that in the forefront, because that again is going to keep fueling the racial tension in this country, the demoralization. That's the big thing for me. If we never got along or whatever like that, that's neither here nor there for me. But the bigger thing that I'm worried about, or the bigger thing that I do this stuff to combat, is the demoralization of the black babies. The black American babies who sit in these classrooms and get told over and over again how second class their ancestors were, how ain't shit their ancestors were, and how, based upon how ain't shit they were, if you are not co-signed by a white person or the greater society, you ain't gonna be shit either. And there's been too many times with my contemporaries, when we were coming up, they would say shit like, man, the white man ain't gonna let you. The white man ain't gonna let you. Like, they literally believe, like, shit, you got people today that will tell you that Michael Jordan, Oprah, Jay-Z, all these different people, these successful people, were allowed to get rich. Somebody allowed Michael Jordan to be the greatest basketball player of all time. Somebody allowed, Jay-Z to be one of the most prolific lyricists that we've ever seen in our lifetime. Like that's not how it happens. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that you don't have to do certain deals with other races and stuff like that. That is what it is. But as far as being like God MC, or as far as being, starting from wherever, Oprah started from, and I know she started from humble beginnings to get to where she at, and I'm not even the biggest Oprah fan. You dig what I'm saying? But when it comes down to all of this stuff, the way they frame it is like, yo, their success is only because of white people. And that is a belief that's widely held by a lot of people. And that is the reason why, when it comes down to your Amanda Seals or these people, one of the main things that I've seen that sticks out to in my mind, just because I talk about it often, is when the elections were happening with Hillary and Trump, and they were basically saying that because the Republicans want ID, you got to show ID to be able to vote. I'm with that. I don't even see why this is a controversial take, but there were so many Democrats, mainly white, saying that, yo, poor and or black people, because they just make that synonymous. That's another part of the bigotry of low expectations of black people, don't know how to get IDs. And I remember there was this little funny skit where this white dude went to Harlem, and he asked a bunch of white people, like, yo, do you think black people know how to get IDs? Do you think the shit that the Republicans are saying is fair? And they're like, no, we have to, it's hard for black people to, get IDs and all this other stuff. And then he went through Harlem and asked a bunch of black people, like, yo, have you ever had a hard time getting an ID? Do you not have an ID? And 100% of the black people that they interviewed was like, what? Of course I have an ID. Like, who doesn't know how to get an ID? Like, this is what is called the bigotry of low expectations. They don't expect black Americans to actually be, intelligent. They don't expect them to be industrious. They don't expect them to, actually be self-sufficient in any way, because so much of what the government has pushed as far as policy and as it pertains to black Americans has always been policy that's also supposed to help the poor. They've made being poor and being black in America synonymous with each other. So they don't care about any of the prosperous black Americans. They don't care about the long lineages of prosperous black Americans. Like, yo, there are lineages, black American lineages in this country who have never been enslaved. On my mother's side, like, I don't think there are any slaves on my mother's side. I'm like 75% sure of that shit. Not all the way 100. I gotta actually talk to her anyway. But yeah, you feel what I'm saying? So it's like there are lineages in this country. I told y'all about James Forten. James Forten was a child during the American Revolutionary War, and his parents were born free. Both black parents. So it's like, again, there are so many different lineages, there's so many different experiences in Black America to try to, box us up in all of this in one ideological or one political or one economic box. That's a problem. That's an op. You feel me? And too many black Americans fed into that. And that's the reason why you see black Americans are voting 80-90% Democrat down the ticket without even looking at these people's policies. So when all of this stuff, like when I say black Americans are not monolithic, I mean that shit. I really mean that shit. There's have-nots, there have-nots, there's people in the middle who have but also have not. All of this other stuff. I understand the nuance, but what they want to do is say, yeah, we're not monolithic, and then behave monolithically. And that's where I will never jive. So no, Frederick Douglass didn't mistreat his wife at all. It's another one that's debunked. It's another one that's debunked. You feel me? What else we got? Let's go back to the bookmarks. I touched on the whole the map. Yep, here we go. So let's go to this tweet here. We're gonna take it from the top. Did he delete it? Did he keep it gangster and delete it? Oh, okay, no, he kept it. So these are braids. These are cornrows, right? We all know what braids are. I had braids. Believe it or not, I had braids when I was a kid. You feel me? That was one of the ways you did it in high school. You feel me? In middle school, you would walk up to the girl you like, and you like, yo, can you catch this? That was the opening line. You feel me? Because if she said yes, that means she liked you too, and you was about to sit between her legs on the steps and get your hair braided on a nice, spring afternoon after school. You feel me? Like that was, it was a little way to get your 1-2s in. You feel me? So that's what I used to do. Let's see. So he says, I know y'all love dumb niggas, but did y'all know cornrows help slaves escape? Certain patterns help lead them to freedom, and they passed information through them. What? Like what? What is that? How? How do you do that? How do you pass information through braids? You feel me? I told y'all in a previous stream, if it doesn't make logistical sense, the ancestors didn't do it. That you have to understand, son. Like the ancestors didn't have time to not use common sense. You think the ancestors, especially enslaved ancestors, had time to fuck around with stupid ideas like this? If you would have proposed this idea to somebody is literally drawing a map, and you like, no, don't draw it, don't write it down, we're gonna get in trouble. Braid the map. They're gonna look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? Not only is this going to be extremely time consuming, how the hell are we gonna read the map, bro? How are we gonna read the map? You're gonna have to lean down so we can read the what? That it doesn't make any logistical sense. The ancestors was all about being pragmatic and being able to it's like the straight line. The shortest distance between point A and point B is going to be a straight line. That's what they were all about. They were about being intelligent. We talked about the quilt. We saw the elder, right? That makes more sense because it's just a blanket. To the outside world, that's just a blanket. You can wrap that around yourself. You can hang it on a post. You can hang it on the wall. You can do whatever you want with it, and nobody's going to be, everybody's going to be none the wiser because they don't understand what the symbols are as it pertains to the quilt. But braids, bro, you think this is you think this makes logistical sense. So on its face, it doesn't make any sense. But as you can see, let's go on down and see how much traction this shit got. Here we go. 2.1 million views, almost 300 replies, almost 4,000 retweets, 37,000 likes, and then 2.5 bookmarks, right? So this nonsense goes viral. And so I had to respond because I'm tired of them lying on the ancestors. We're going to get to the chat in just a second. So here I go. Here's your president talking. And I was talking about in this thread, when studying history, understand that just because it's old doesn't mean it's true. Do your best to get primary sources. I've been saying this shit for years, Jack. Primary sources first. Don't just take the first search results as gospel. Dig through the archives, books and newspapers, greater than blogs and websites. Facts. And the reason why I said this is because I had to dig for this. If you were right now to Google map braids, you're going to get a bunch of blogs, a bunch of contemporary blogs that was made within the last 10 years, right? 2010 is probably going to be the earliest. 2009 maybe the earliest, but a lot of them were being published around like 2012, 2013, and it got popular on Facebook. A lot of the bullshit be popping on Facebook first. All right. So here we go. This is a perfect example. This has been making rounds. The braids. The braid stuff has been making its rounds for years online. The source comes from a sociology thesis by Afro-Colombian Lina Alvarez in Bogota. She cites a woman, Leocadia Mosquera, whose grandmother told her about it. So this is it right here. Sorry, y'all. This is it right here. Now, this is in Spanish. I had to translate it and all this other stuff. And this is the translation. This is the translation. So she says, Leocadia remembers her grandmother telling her about the troops. The troops are the type of braids. Okay. Those thin braids stuck to the leather hair that Afro-Colombian and non-Afro-Colombian boys and girls wear today. So let's not forget, I don't know if Son is Black American or whatever, but the primary source of this comes from Colombia. Whole different country, whole different continent. But anyway, check out, just read this shit with me. Many of they believe, because this is translated, so it's rough. They believe that Dennis Rodman, Shaquille O'Neal, or Snoop Dogg have invented them since they have seen on posters and CD covers. If they travel to Baldo, San Juan, or to the Atrado, and see the hairstyles of the grandmothers and the girls, they would be surprised to find the same designs on the head. Globalization? No. African America has always been there. The plan to escape from their masters, the women gathered around the heads of the most small, and thanks to the observation of the mountains, they designed a map full of paths and exits of escape, locating the mountains, the rivers, and the tallest trees. The men, upon seeing them, they could know where to go. Language in the body, with unknown codes for the masters, allowed the people to flee. Thus, hairstyles that could have served as markers or tribal and ethnic belonging, and even of social status, played a predominant role as a beautiful but intricate and secret language for those who did not know it. So again, as you can see, not only is it a map, okay, it's also, what did they say? Markers of tribal and ethnic belonging. So your braids will now dictate or denote where you from and who you with, social status, the type of person you are. And this is, again, a study that was written in 2003. Look at the date. Look at the date. Bogota, 2003. This is the earliest and only source about this. So listen, I understand the importance of oral history. Oral traditions, you feel me, are very important. My granny told me stories, you feel me, that it can be corroborated if I dug deep and stuff like that. But again, when you are purporting this stuff and it's over the course of hundreds of years, somebody has had to have talked about it, period. That's why I tell y'all all of the time, there's no such thing as hidden history. If you know about it, or if it's documented, then it wasn't hidden. You just didn't read it. You just didn't know it. That's fine. Unknown history is a thing. Forgotten history is a thing. But if it's actually hidden history, you don't know it exists. You don't know it exists. And even when you think of things like the Library of Alexandria, right, that was destroyed, the books that were in the library no longer exist. However, the actual Library of Alexandria did exist, and you know that exists. So you may not know the actual transcripts or the actual books that was inside the library, but you know the library existed because that was destroyed history. It's absolutely gone. So yeah, you can forget history. You feel me? You can destroy it as far as like different, monuments or whatever. You can literally just tear things down or whatever. But as far as it being hidden from you, if somebody is telling you about it, how could it be hidden? If they saw it, how couldn't you see it? And it'd be so funny. It'd be like motherfuckers with blogs from 2018 that's telling me about hidden history. It's like, you wrote a blog about it, so how is it hidden? Where's your sources? Unless you went back in time and brought it to the future, you feel me? How did you find it? It was there. You just had to read it. That's all it was. It wasn't hidden from you. It's just something that they didn't teach you directly. And then you got that all of the time, like, oh, why didn't they teach us this in school? It's like, yo, bro, they didn't want to. You're not bound just to school to have knowledge. The great majority of the things that I know as an adult didn't even come from inside of a school building. I learned that shit from outside. I learned that shit from my own independent research. So yeah, this is a story, oral tradition that was published in 2003, and nobody else in Colombia, like nobody else in that tribe, nobody else talks about this. This is the only source about it. So for me, that debunks it. That there is no corroboration. Somebody needs to corroborate this, and nobody has. Outside of just the blogs, because like the woman who wrote the thesis interviewed these women and stuff like that. So that woman does like tours. When you go to Colombia and you do the like the plantation tours or the history tours out there, they'll tell you about the maps and stuff like that. But that's not enough corroboration for me. There had to have been some type of documentation from the time that it began orally to now, and it can't be in 2003. That's unacceptable. You dig what I'm saying? So again, I'm looking for corroboration. Period. So no, we did not braid maps in our hair. We quilted maps though. That makes more sense. What's another one? Oh yeah. Let's see if this would. Cornmeal, would that be a good keyword to use? No, of course not. Let's see. Hush puppies. Did y'all hear about how hush puppies came to be, chat? Did they tell you that it was because the slaves, to quiet the dogs, fried cornmeal? They fried cornmeal to quiet the dogs. Let's see. Oh no, this is just me. I just been making fun of it over the years. So yeah, they basically said that hush puppies were invented by slaves to quiet the hunting dogs, the slave catching dogs, from catching them. And again, if it doesn't make logistical sense, the ancestors didn't do it. It doesn't make any sense, fam. Nobody would do this. If I am running away from a ravaging dog, why on earth would I be dropping food? Not only do they have my scent, right? They give him a rag or something like that with my scent on it to chase me down. And not only does the dog have my scent, he has the scent of fried cornmeal permeating out of my motherfucking satchel or whatever it is. And then not only that, I'm dropping them on the ground. I'm literally leaving breadcrumbs for the dogs to catch me. Why would the slave do that? If I'm escaping the plantation, why would I lead a trail of food for a dog to eat to make it easier for the dog to track me down? And then what happens when you run out of it? Do you have an infinite supply of this fried cornmeal? Like, again, yo, I really be wanting to understand, like, yo, where do these nut-ass stories come from? And why do these people be believing it? And it's Facebook University. See, I don't disparage YouTube University too tough, but Facebook University is the worst university on the internet. You are going to get misinformed every single time. Dr. Inky says it's the uninformed being informed by the misinformed. Period. That's all that is. That's what that is a prime example of. The uninformed being informed by the misinformed. That's it. Making bullshit up. But let me show y'all the actual origins of the hush puppy. Here we go. Right here. The story of hush puppy is a genuine Carolina treat. Shout out to the Carolinas. That's where my peoples is from. So let me use the search tool. Go Vaughn. Boom. There we go. This is the real story of hush puppies, y'all. Okay, we debunking the lies. We're not gonna keep lying on the ancestors. So when the motherfuckers tell y'all, oh, all of these lies, you can tell them like, yo, all of this is not true. Before we get into the article, let's get to the chat. Let's see what the chat has got to say. Damn, y'all chatting tonight, man. I ain't mad at it though. Let's see, where did it leave off at? So what happened with Cracker Barrel? I've been under a rock the last few weeks. Basically, Sammy, they revamped the Cracker Barrel logo, and they took the cracker and the barrel off the logo. The inside of the restaurant don't no longer looks like old country anymore. It's mad just that 21st century just bland, like, you know how McDonald's went from being these, you know, colorful places when we were kids that we would love to go to the Play Palace and stuff like that, Play Place and all of that. Now it just looks like corporate drudgery. It's all just gray everywhere and all the other stuff. That's what they've done to Cracker Barrel. They completely revamped it. The CEO, you know, so proud of it. She swears that the employees and the customers love the new look. Everybody that I've seen talk about it is completely outraged about it. They hate it. You feel me? They hate it. So that's what's happening with Cracker Barrel. What else we got in the chat? So backhand racism. Exactly, Bert. Backhand racism. That's all it is. Just backhand racism. That's what they do. They don't believe that you actually have the knowledge to do anything or create anything without the assistance of white people. The paternalism. You know, we was talking about that in Rashad's space when it came down to that woman who was trying to give props to white men in corporate spaces at the expense of black men in those same spaces. And, you know, shout out to everybody that defended the black man in that regard. But what she was basically saying is that, yo, white men are not insecure about their station in life or their station in society. And white men already are, you know, affirmed in their place. And they're the greatest allies to black women in the corporate space. It's just nonsense. So it's dead ass black people walking around literally believing that the white man's ice is colder. That's not just a stereotype. That's not just a trope. There are black people walking around right now who inherently believe white people are superior to them. And that's the reason why I be like so flabbergasted, because these be the niggas that be going so hard and thinking they so pro-black, but you inherently don't even look at yourself as somebody that's formidable, as somebody who actually should be held to a standard or in a high regard. Black motherfucker do something wrong, we gotta understand. A white motherfucker do something wrong, them motherfuckers should have knew better. You feel me? That's what I be talking about. Like, they treat themselves and outsiders treat black people like they're children. It's paternalism. You know what I'm saying? It's being able to baby, because I have a hard time saying infantilism. I think that's how you say it, infantilism or infantilizing black Americans or black people in general, but black Americans specifically in this context. That's what they do. And that goes all the way back to the days of slavery. Like, there are these slave owners and stuff like that who dead ass in their mind have convinced themselves that, oh, I have to keep my slaves because without me, they wouldn't know how to live. And they brainwashed a lot of slaves into believing that same thing. One of the first authors in Black American history, Jupiter Hammond, he speaks about this. He says, you know, as an old man, because he wrote this in 17 something, like 1760 something. He's the second poet and writer. The first one was Lucy Terry. She wrote a poem in, I want to say 1746 or 1764. I get the 4 and the 6 mixed up. So she's the first, but it was just published after Jupiter's was published. So she wrote it in before Jupiter, but it was published after Jupiter. And Jupiter was an extremely Christian man, staunch Christian, and he was an old man when he was writing. And as an old man, he didn't want to be freed from slavery. He was like, no, I'm in my 70s. I'm good where I'm at. I wouldn't even know how to, you know, get my own or make my own or do my own or any of that stuff. I've been completely reliant on the benevolence of my owner. I don't like calling them masters, but that's the relationship. You feel me? So when it comes to that, you'll have people from those times to this day that believes that the white man's ice is colder, that the white man knows better, that the white man does better, and he is inherently better. And not to take a shot at, you know, the Africans, brothers and sisters and stuff like that, but I've seen that when it comes to the African gender wars, like one of the things that I've noticed that here in the West, we have different ways of communicating, especially in English. So English is not the first language for a lot of these countries or whatever. So that when you're translating, just like how we translated this document, it's like it's going to be very blatant. And so that blatant, translation from their language to English or whatever is going to be very in your face. And you'll see a lot of, South Africans, specifically men and women, being like, "Yo, white women are better. Like they're smarter. They just put it right there on Front Street. White men are better. They're smarter. And like they just put it right there on Front Street as opposed to having more nuance. I'm sure there is nuance inside of South Africa, obviously, but you wouldn't necessarily see on a contemporary sense somebody just outright, a black American just outright saying the white man is better. Like that is a rare case. I'm pretty sure they exist, but that is a rare case in black America, to where you'll see somebody just being like, "Yo, nah, white people are better than black people, period." Not any type of nuance, not any type of nothing, just blatantly saying, "Yo, by virtue of the skin color, by virtue of stations in life, by virtue of just this alone, white people are better." You're not going to really see that. So you're going to see that in as far as black America, you're going to see some people who genuinely believe that the white man's ice is colder based upon, just history that they've been told and things that they've perceived in their own lives and stuff like that. Maybe their, doctor was always white. The cops that they seen was always white. The people that are in positions of power were always white and stuff like that. So it definitely, shapes the way they view the world that they live in. That's why I tell y'all, when it comes to like economic development, most of my bosses were black American private business owners. I can count on one hand how many white businesses I worked for. So I saw black men and women building wealth to the point that they can hire other people. So I didn't have that inferiority about what the white man will and won't let me do. My employer has mainly been black. Since I was like working for somebody, it was mainly black. So when it comes to this type of stuff, I don't have that hang up. I don't have that inferiority complex, especially when you compound that with the type of studies that I do, the type of scholarship that I have. It's absolutely impossible for me to be inferior or feel inferior despite racism, despite oppression historically, despite discrimination historically. Like all of this different stuff is nothing for me to feel inferior about, because Boley, Oklahoma exists, Langston, Oklahoma exists, Allentown, California, Eatonville, Florida, all of these different things in black American history where it was nothing but black American ingenuity that made this happen. I understand that when it comes down to these people flippantly saying that black Americans built this country, they don't really even understand what they mean when they say that. But when I say it, I literally mean the houses that these people lived in was built by black Americans. The food that they ate was grown by black Americans. The things that they know, like their lifestyle, was completely forged by black Americans. There's absolutely nothing to feel inferior about, because without them, you would have starved or done shoddy work. That's just what it was. So I stand on that. You feel me? There's nothing for me to feel inferior about, even when you include slavery. Because I'm telling y'all, in one of my old streams, a few streams ago, we watched a video of a slave owner literally pleading and begging for his slave to come back because he didn't know where his next meal was going to come from. So what is there to feel inferior about when y'all be talking about the worst parts of history, which would be slavery as it pertains to black Americans? Even the slave owners had to admit their inferiority to the slave. And you want to think I'm going to walk around with an inferiority complex and an actual slave owner couldn't feed himself? What is there to feel inferior about? So let's get back to the chat and then we'll get back to the article. Let's see. Good evening, President Hotep. What's good, Auntie? Thank you for coming into the live. Sammy says, woke right never fails to deliver with the thoughtless reaction. That's a fact. That's a fact, Sammy. Bert says, that's all they do is react. The only thing they there for, while the left runs circles around them. People don't see it, though. And you know what's so funny about that, Bert? You'll have the left say, oh, this is why the Republicans always win. This is why the Republicans always win. And then you'll have Republicans say, this is why the Democrats always win. They're in their own echo chambers, bro. They have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Both groups feel defeated. And both groups are apparently winning at the same time. Because all you got to do is just ask the other group, hey, Republicans. Or the Democrats winning, hell yeah, they've taken off. They can control of the media. CNN is fake news. Like, they have all of that. And then when you ask Democrats, they be like, yeah, Trump is in office. The Republicans are redistricting Texas. It's a whole bunch of, like, both parties feels like they're losing and the other party is winning. So what's the truth? You're both losers. That's all it is. Not even that you're both winning. You're both losers. It's the reason why I don't really get into the two-party politic thing. I'm Hotep. I tell people all the time, I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, I'm not liberal, I'm not conservative. I'm Hotep. Point blank, period. That's the flag that I fly. Sammy says that's Hollywood movie magic. For sure. Just lies. They hid the razors up there. True. Fact check, true. Weapons, for sure. They even kept rice seeds. They had rice seeds. I know people got that misconstrued and said it was rice grains, but it wasn't. It was rice seeds. And when they got there, when they got to freedom, they were able to, plant the seeds and be able to grow rice. Sammy says, what is it? The braids? Bert says that's a lot of info for braids. They got metadata in the braids. That's a fact. They got metadata in the braids, bro. It's insane. Sammy said that's fake too. You gotta let me know what he means by that. Oh, fed them dogs to keep them quiet. Yeah. That's fake too. Yeah, that's fake. How much info was in the braids again? Yeah, Bert was there for the nonsense. Yeah. Let's see. Sammy says plenty secure black leaders in corporate too. Absolutely is what I meant to say. A lot of them in Kenya and Uganda too. You see what I'm saying? So when it comes down to that stuff, bro, like I don't get into the gender wars, man. Especially like African gender wars. They ain't got nothing to do with me. I just click the don't show me these types of tweets. I'm not interested. It's irrelevant or whatever. So going back to the next myth and debunking it, Romeo Govan, ladies and gentlemen, in red horse bread. Let's get into it. Sometime around the turn of the 20th century, guests at South Carolina fish fries were introduced to a brand new delicacy called red horse bread. No, it wasn't red in color, and nobody was feeding it to the horses to shut them up. See, they took a dig at the at the hush puppy name. Says the name refers to a type of fish. For in the early 20th century, red horse was one of the many species of river fish like catfish, bream, black bass, and shad. They were caught by South Carolinians and cooked at big fish fries on the banks. In the early years of the 20th century, the undisputed king of the Edisto fish fry was an African-American man by the name of Romeo Govan. Black American, okay? Born into slavery in the 1840s, Govan married a woman named Sylvie Jennings shortly after emancipation, and they settled on a plot of land near Cannon's Bridge on the banks of the Edisto River, about 5 miles east of Bamberg. They lived there the rest of their lives. So shout out to my side of the family, like my father's side of the family. They're from South Carolina, so shout out to the Gullah Geechee, shout out to South Carolina. Let's move on. Initially, Govan leased the land and farmed it, but he soon began supplementing his income by staging fish fries for local civic clubs and political organizations. By the turn of the 20th century, he had constructed what he called his clubhouse, a frame structure with a neatly swept yard where guests could come feast on, quote, fish of every kind prepared in every way. As an accompaniment, he served what the Augusta Chronicle described in 1903, primary source, as the, quote, the once eaten, never to be forgotten red horse bread. So primary source. So when we talking about hush puppies, right, quieting the horses, the only primary source you got is a fucking text wall on Facebook. That's it. It's the only thing that you got to prove that this shit actually existed. Okay? Text walls. A picture of a drawing, a drawing of a slave running away, dropping bread. That's your only primary source. However, this article cites the primary source, the Augusta Chronicle, described in 1903, because this is at the turn of the 20th century, which means the beginning of the 20th century. Okay? The once eaten, never to be forgotten red horse bread. So there we go. And before we move on, Govan leased and farmed the land, right? And then He started supplementing his income by starting fish fries, and created this little clubhouse and shit like that. And he became legendary for his fish fries. You feel me? Like all across the state, and we're gonna learn more about it. Let's get into it. A few years later, a correspondent of the Bamberg Herald noted that Govan's famous bread was, quote, made by simply mixing cornmeal with water, salt, and egg, and dropped by spoonfuls in the hot lard in which fish have been fried, end quote. The ingredients may have been simple, but the accounts of Govan's Red Horse bread make clear that his guests along the riverside found them a remarkable delicacy, and one that was new to them too. So he's introducing this. This is literally the creator. He's literally the creator of this, okay? Ye gods and little fishes, the Bamberg Herald correspondent declared, quote, this was a new bread to the writer and so delicious that I beg lovers of the Finny tribe to try some. So the dude who wrote the article in the newspaper was like, yo, fam, son, this shit is delicious. I don't know how he thought of this. Where did he get this idea from, son? Where did he get this idea from? This is amazing. This shit is good. Whatever this is good. Red Horse bread, that's what you call it? Oh yeah. Everybody got to try this. Please. He's literally cooking. Literally cooking. All right? Where we at? Try some. By 1908, Govan was hosting fish fries almost every day of the fishing season, and the state newspaper describe his guests as ranging from governors, attorney generals, bishops, down to the candidates for coroner, etc. So he is like gaining in an audience. You know what I'm saying? Like prominent people in the area are like, yo, you have to go to Govan's fish fries. Every day of the fishing season, it was packed wall to wall with people wanting to go to Romeo's shack, or his clubhouse, we called it, to eat his famous fish fries and eat the famous Red Horse bread. Again, just more and more sources. We are now, 3 different primary sources in, not a text wall on Facebook, but newspapers, quoted, okay? And people are coming from far and wide to eat at this man's legendary fish fries. And I don't know about y'all and y'all family, but we give it up crazy on the fish fries. You hear me? Delicious food. It's more just Black American history right here. More Black American history. Let's see. Though he never directly asked for payment, the gratuities he received for these events allowed him to purchase the land outright by 1910. So he's doing it on the arm. He's doing it, just because he liked frying fish. And he like frying bread. You feel me? Or frying cornmeal, rather. But yeah, frying bread. And not even charging, and being like, yo, son, like, just enjoy the food. And people feeling so good, so full, and so, gratuitous, right? They gave him bread. Like, yo, son, I gotta give you something. You've had that happen. Like somebody does a solid for you, does a service for you, does it so well, and they don't charge you, and you like, nah, son, I gotta give you something. You gotta be paid for this. You dig what I'm saying? I ain't gonna hold you. That's how I created that's why I created the Patreon. When I was having these spaces and having conversations with people was like, yo, dog, how can I pay you for this? Like you researched all of this stuff for me. Like, how can I pay you? So I was just like, yo, dog, I'll just create a Patreon and make these videos. You dig what I'm saying? What else? Says Romeo Govan died of Bright's disease in 1915, but his talents as a cook left a substantial legacy to his family. His wife Sylvia sold part of their land along the Adesto River in 1918 for $2,500. We got to look it up, Sammy. You know we got to look it up. Hold on. You know we got to look it up. 2,500. And what was that? She said 1918. Yep, 1918. How much is that adjusted for inflation? $53,000 adjusted for inflation. Though the couple never had children, Sylvia left another 50 acres along the river to her grandnephew, Paul Rickenbacker, when she died in 1924. Red Horse bread lived on after Romeo Govan and became a fixture at South Carolina fish fries. It's quite possible that Govan himself was the one who coined the name, since his earliest appearances in print are almost all connected with one of his fish fries. Primary sources, almost all of them say, "Yo, Romeo, Govan is why I'm eating this right now." By the 1920s, though, accounts of fish fries throughout Bamberg, Orangeburg, and Dorchester counties mentions the presence of red horse bread. The fried cornmeal. See, that's the thing. I don't really care because he was doing it since the early 20th century. The fried cornmeal orbs made it as far west as Greenwood by World War II, and you can still find a few old timers in the middle part of South Carolina who call hush puppies red horse bread to this day. So that's the actual origin stories of hush puppies. Not a bunch of slaves dropping fried cornmeal, okay, before they escaped. You feel me? Before they escaped. So, yeah, and then saying, and then it spread, but, I go by dates. The earliest dates was Romeo. So that's the reason why we go to the primary sources. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the Patreon, by the way. It's 10 o'clock. Make sure you guys are subscribing. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Okay. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe. Patreon.com/Hotep History. So one of the latest additions to the Hotep History digital library was this book. Okay. This book is titled, I want y'all to know this is the entire title. This entire thing is the title. It says Music and Some Highly Musical People, containing brief chapters on 1. A description of music. 2. The music of nature. 3. A glance at the history of music. 4. The power, beauty, and uses of music, following which are given secrets of the lives of remarkable musicians of the colored race, with portraits and an appendix containing copies of music composed by colored men by James M. Trotter. That's the entire title. That was the entire title. I haven't jumped all the way into the book yet. I am going to do an entire video on the history of Black American arts, Black American music. I'm letting y'all know now, hip hop, R&B is not going to be in it because I'm stopping in probably the 60s. R&B might be in it. You feel me? But no, there's history, there's a whole bunch of history documentaries on hip hop, but y'all don't know anything about 19th century Black American music, early 20th century music. So I'm doing a whole video on that. So look out for that. It's gonna be on the Patreon only. So make sure you're subscribing. Patreon.com/Hotep History. And once I figure out how to get this right here, like all of this stuff. Oh yeah, I can't see it, but all of the frame around this, like having all of the plugs and promotions and stuff like that, it's gonna be trouble for y'all. And these are some of the early musicians. Okay, this book was written in 1878. All right, so shout out to that. Why? Oh, okay. Let's go back to the bookmarks. Let's see. We'll get to that in just a second. So, I finally started watching Gilded Age. Everybody, y'all been telling me to watch Gilded Age. I finally started watching it. I see why you guys wanted me to watch it. I appreciate the recommendation. I'm only on episode 2. I've been slow walking it just because I have been just busy doing other stuff, researching and stuff like that. But yeah, so I only watched 2 episodes. So the first episode, you get introduced to Peggy Scott. Peggy Scott helped the young white woman. I forgot her name. Was it Mary Ann or something like that? I forgot her name. Sorry. But she helps her get to New York from Pennsylvania on the train. Somebody pickpocketed her or stole her purse or whatever. So she had to help her get to New York. Peggy Scott helps her. They make it to New York and stuff like that. Now, Peggy Scott went to, why does they keep doing this? Peggy Scott, let me put There we go. Peggy Scott attended the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia, the first college built specifically for black students and teachers. Black aristocrat Octavius Cato was not only a graduate but a principal of the school as well. So that's when. So Peggy Scott's character introduces herself to her friend's aunt Agnes, right? The one who she's going to be like eventually starts working for and stuff like that, and lets her know that, hey, because she has great handwriting and stuff like that. So the aunt asked Peggy like, hey, where did you learn to write like this? And she says, oh, I went to the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia. So I immediately, bing, like that already immediately resonated with me. So of course had to look it up, look up a picture real quick, put that in the thread. And yeah, a lot of the black aristocrats, a lot of the upper class black Americans of the time went to this school. Okay, and I'm pretty sure, like, it's not really a spoiler for myself because I know why a lot of people wanted me to watch it. Because while I was doing research for episode 5, I was sharing some of the stuff that I was researching, and people was like, yo, you need to watch Gilded Age. This sounds just like Gilded Age. So I know Peggy Scott comes from money and stuff like that. And so a lot of the elite went to college and things like that. So Octavius Cato, he was one of the black elite. He graduated from there and then later became a principal of the school. So check out his story too. Octavius Cato, he was pretty cool. He got killed in a crazy way. So now, like I was saying, the young white woman's aunt, I don't know why I don't know her name. If y'all know her name, put it in the chat. But her aunt, she had several staff in her mansion, right? And they were largely European immigrants. And during this time, they weren't considered white. They weren't considered white. They were just wherever they were from, Irish, German, Jewish, what's another one? French, and upon Peggy's arrival, the young Irish maid right here, this one, she was immediately intimidated. Immediately. And this speaks to the job competition between black Americans and the Irish during this time. Now, this show takes place in 1882, so the late 19th century, okay? About 20 years after slavery was abolished. And the Irish were, like, they were literally called Irish niggas. Like, there's a whole bunch of, like, let's see. Anti-Irish political cartoons, yep. You'll see it, like, this is how they viewed the Irish. You feel me? Right here. This is the stereotypes. A bestial Irishman, his anger inflamed by pro-Irish political broadsides and a demon rum, alcoholic, represents a veritable powder keg of potential violence in his 1871 Thomas Nast cartoon. The ape-like features are typical of the depictions of the Irish used by the Nast and other Anglo-American cartoonists. And other Anglo-American cartoonists, newspaper editors, writers, and opinion makers who were unsettled by the influx of Irish immigrants to the United States. The association of the Irish with violence meanwhile, stemmed from the bloody legacy of a nationalist and peasant protest tradition in Ireland, as well as from fears aroused by events like the 1863 draft riots and the seeming Irish penchant for drunkenness and brawling. So this is how they view the Irish. If you guys ever watched Gangs of New York, you'll see that, right? The butcher, the guy that was like played by Daniel Day-Lewis, he calls himself a native. He calls himself a patriot, and he was against the Irish. He was against black. He was all about white America, like Anglo white American. That's all he was pushing. So yeah, this is how they viewed the Irish. So obviously similar to to the black stereotypes that they had. You know, look at him. This was an Irishman. That's how they viewed him. They made him look like apes and stuff like that. Okay, so that's where the comparisons come from. They were, relegated to their own ghettos and stuff like that, but ghettos nonetheless. And they had to compete for jobs. Some of them service jobs, like the maid here. So when she seen Peggy, she immediately got intimidated, even though that Peggy was a secretary, hired as a secretary. And sorry, y'all. And she's a maid. Completely two different occupations, but she had that inherent intimidation about it because she understood maybe her father had to compete for jobs against black men in New York and stuff like that. So she inherently got apprehensive with the woman. And I'm interested to see how that relationship turns out. What else we got? Oh, this is the final one. And the battle between new and old money among black American aristocrats were a thing too. So in the first episode, you get to understand the difference between the old money versus the new money. So on Agnes, right, she's a part of the old money crew. The old money ilk, the money that's been there for hundreds of years. They were bragging about how their family have been there since the Revolutionary War and stuff like that. And in black American aristocracy, similar things were happening. It's just that the timeline was a little bit different. When it comes to black American aristocracy and old guard versus the newcomers, that's what they were called. The source that I get this from is the Aristocrats of Color. I actually had some excerpts from it that I'm going to be sharing too. So the old guard were black families who were wealthy pre-Civil War. Okay, so a lot of these people were either escaped slaves or never enslaved black Americans. They made their way to different parts of the South or up north, and they were able to build wealth before the war and able to keep that wealth after the war. Okay, the newcomers were black families who amassed their wealth after 1865. So after emancipation, they were able to build wealth, build factories, build businesses, stuff like that, and be able to, build wealth in that regard. You feel me? So that's the two groups. And when it comes down, you'll learn this in episode 5. Like episode 5 is all about this. I'm telling y'all gonna love episode 5. And I'm telling y'all, when episode 5 finally drops, I am not going to stop promoting it. I'm going to be promoting that shit from every day that is available, because we going super hard. It's so long in the making. It's I can't wait, especially to see what Kia does with the material. So yeah, y'all gonna love episode 5. But it's all about this: the battle between the old guard and the newcomers, the sentiments and the elite and how they differ and all this other stuff, and how they are approaching poorer or lower class black Americans and things of that nature. So you'll have one half of the black American elite, whether they old guard or not, or newcomer or not, you'll have one half of them saying, yo, those poor black Americans ain't got shit to do with us. That's them. We don't like them just as much as the white men don't like them. We don't give a damn. And then you had the other half saying like, yo, we need to do everything in our power to refine them, to, raise their station in this country, to make sure that they're educated, to make sure they have skills, to make sure that they can actually be viable people in this country. And that was the struggle. And you'll have testimonies of people, who, like the old guard was largely that type of group that was kind of like, we don't really care about what's going on because they've been rich, they've been had money. Like they would get into the bag during slavery. You dig? And that's where I tell you about, like, these people had slurs. They had slurs for their enslaved counterparts. They called them contraband. And after slavery was abolished, they would make the distinction in saying, hey, I'm a freeman, you're a freedman, meaning that you were freed from slavery. I've always been free, or I've at least been free for a generation longer than you. So they would have testimonies of the old guard and some elites, even some newcomers, but not all, because newcomers understand the struggle. A lot of the newcomers were slaves themselves. So to hassad on, poor black Americans, and you just came off the plantation yourself, was like, well, nigga, goddamn, it's pot calling the kettle black. So a lot of the old guard would go down south and try to do like charity work and shit like that. and they would just be condescending towards, you know, the poorer Black Americans, the lower class Black Americans, and they just literally didn't want anything to do with them. In fact, a lot of the old guard believed that Jim Crow laws were created to spite them and group them up with everybody else, because their plea was, yo, we don't like these poor Black Americans just as much as you don't. We are elite Black Americans. We go to, you know, our higher education institutions. We're doing this, that, and the third. So, you know, they're not like us at all. Like, we're two different people. And you see, I'm talking about, you see that all the way up to the Great Migration. I played the video already on stream, but it bears repeating and stuff like that. But yeah, for sure. Like, when a lot of the Southerners were coming up north, going out west to the Midwest and all that other stuff, they were saying like, yo, these people are not like us, yo, and they have to refine themselves and get their footing, but they are making all of us who have refined ourselves already look bad. And that's how they felt. So, like I said, the culture and class clashes of Black America historically has always been there. Just some lightheartedness. I love this video. This video is hilarious.
How do you pronounce this lady's name right here? How do you say her name, Miss Witherspoon? What's her first name? Reese, right? Reese.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you add an apostrophe S to that, what would you say? I know you wouldn't say Reese's. I know you wouldn't start calling her Reese's Witherspoon. So why the fuck are you calling that candy Reese's Pieces? I can't even fucking say it because it's bullshit. The name is supposed to rhyme. It's supposed to be Reese's Pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You don't add an apostrophe S to the name Reese and start saying Reese's. Reese's Pieces? Y'all saying Reese's Pieces? Y'all pronounce pieces as pieces? Because if you do, I'm scared of you. I will never forget the first time I heard someone say, can I get some Reese's? Who the fuck is that? Who the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? I don't know anything that calls themselves Reese's Pieces. And even if that's the correct pronunciation, which if it is, they're dumb. It's Reese. Reese's Pieces.
And the only reason why this shit made me laugh so hard, son, because all throughout my childhood, son, you can bet your fucking ass I was calling them shits Reese's Pieces, son. My entire childhood, son. Not lying to you. Not lying to you at all. My entire childhood, I was calling them little motherfuckers Reese's Pieces all of the time, son. I ain't start calling them shits Reese's Pieces until I was an adult. That's a fact, son. As a kid, all throughout the 90s, oh yeah, those was Reese's Pieces. Every time, son. Validate me, son. Somebody vindicate me, son. Tell me I wasn't the only one that was calling them Reese's Pieces in the chat, son. Let me know. Because that's exactly what I was calling them as a kid. I keep skipping this white man. He talks, it's a good history. It's 3 minutes long, and I just don't want to hear it. But I did want to get to what I was telling y'all about the minstrel shows and stuff like that, right? So, again, this is from last summer. I only got 10 retweets. And it didn't get much traction. And I did want to just expound on this shit because it was hilarious. It was extremely hilarious to me. All right, so here we go. So I said I stumbled upon the Rand rivalry between two men, and the story is hilarious. See, I told you. A short thread on the beef between Sylvester Russell, this guy right here, and Sherman H. Dudley. Okay, so I'm gonna read my captions and then we're gonna click the newspaper articles. Okay, so it says Sylvester Russell was a former actor that turned into a journalist once his acting career didn't take off. He became an arts critic, essentially like a DJ Academics of the early 20th century. He would write entertainment reviews in a black newspaper called The Freeman. The Freeman is top 10 for me, black newspapers. Top 10, honestly, top 5. Top 5, for real. The illustrations are amazing. So many of the articles are uplifting and and they just it's good information, super good information. So this is the Freeman's logo. This is the header of the newspaper. This is fire. This is fire. Okay, in Ethiopia, what is that? Shall something shall stretch forth her hand. In Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hand. A national illustrated colored newspaper. Okay, super dope newspaper. If you go to the archives, make sure that you check out the Freeman. You feel me? Let's see. Let's see. So this is him. This is Sylvester Russell. Again, think like he's a failed actor at the end of the day. He's a failed actor, probably a little bit disgruntled. You feel me? And now he's critiquing artists and critiquing actors and stuff like that instead of making his own art, which is something that we see to this day, right? So Sherman H. Dudley was a famous comedic actor who was beloved by many. He was like the Will Smith of his day. He would go on to own a chain of theaters throughout the country. So this is him. Okay. S.H. Dudley, Sherman H. Dudley. And this is, him. This is his theater co-host, or not co-host, co-star. All right. So moving on down. In 1906, Russell wrote a scathing review of one of Dudley's plays, The Black Politician. He insulted Dudley's craft, called him a loathsome comedian, and said he wasn't as good as other actors of the time, and made comments about his wife, who was an actor as well. Right? So that is, ladies and gentlemen, I know you can't really make it out, but that is a black man in blackface. That is a black man in blackface. And that's what I was talking about when it comes to minstrel shows and shit like that. Like it it was something that certain black actors and stuff did there's certain things that black actors did voluntarily. It wasn't just white men putting on the tar paint and shit like that on their face. It was black men who were doing the shit too, because at the end of the day, they trying to get them white dollars. And it's already an established form of entertainment. So they wanted to just go with the established form, so they would exaggerate their own skin color and paint the shit. You feel me? And you've seen that before, So, and this is the review. It says, consult the spectators of the night on question. I will ask and answer concern the past, present, and future of Sherman H. Dudley, actor and featured star of Gus Hill's Smart Set Company, like a cup of joy reduced to salted water, and they would never vary one iota from the glowing search warrant account which I am about to give of this loathsome comedian, okay, who hails from the Lone Star State of Texas on the borderland. Not that Texas is out of the circumference, or that Dallas, Mr. Dudley's hometown, is off the map. Do I base my utterance? Dudley is simply a cold-blooded graduate of the minstrel stage. He came up to minstrelsy from hard kicks and pounds. He had hayseeded around New York long enough to become an actor on the indiscretion of discovering that his Texas dialect would serve him well, brushed up with foolishness and topped off with just enough originality and brazenness to make himself a success. So basically saying like, yo, bro, like you are old country nigga, okay, from down south. You went to New York, cooning, shucking and jiving for the white man to be able to get your name out there and all of that. And I don't respect your craft. I don't respect what you do. You dig? So he kept doing that. You know what I'm saying? Over the years, both were gaining popularity in their respective fields. Dudley would put on a show. Russell would critique Dudley. Dudley would put on a show. Russell would critique Dudley's work in the newspaper, and Dudley would just ignore it. That was until February of 1911. Backstage, before Dudley started his show, he saw Russell. Dudley shook Russell's hand, and politely asked him to come into the next room, leaving the door open, right? Left the door open. Dudley then proceeded to beat the shit out of Russell in front of everybody backstage. Oh my God. So it says Dudley assaults Russell. Sylvester Russell has S.H. Dudley arrested and fined, then sues the actor immediately for $5,000 of damages occurred at the Weber's Theater in Chicago. This is crazy. Or Weber's? So let's go to the article. It says here, there was a most regretful and unexpected scene at Weber's Theater, Wabash Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, while the Smart Set Companies was preparing for their opening matinee, February 26. Sylvester Russell had just greeted S.H. Dudley and Honey Johnson by a shake of the hand. In a moment, Mr. Dudley had cordially asked Mr. Russell to step into an adjoining room. The door was left open. There was no quarrel, but Dudley suddenly and unexpectedly struck Mr. Russell beneath the right eye, cutting a deep gash with his finger ring. Russell, who was blinded, could not defend himself, and Dudley continued to beat him until W. Roger Jones, a tenor singer and a former student of Tuskegee Institute. Yo, I love how they just shouted out Booker T. Washington like that. Like, shout out to Tuskegee, you feel me? And could reach Dudley to pull him away. Mr. Dudley was then rushed to his dressing room by the actors, right? So what I left out in the thread is that so Russell or Sylvester, he was talking shit not only about Dudley's wife, but also Dudley's son. Dudley's son was with him one night when he was either with the president or with Booker T. Washington. He was meeting Booker T. Washington, and Russell was basically saying like, yo, your son was acting unruly in front of Booker T. Washington and all this other stuff. So when it came down to Dudley finally seeing him, he was like, yo, you've been talking about my family. And you know what I love about Dudley is that he didn't say shit. He didn't say shit. He dapped him up like, yo, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? This your wife? Yeah. How you doing, Miss Lady? He was like, yo, fam, like, let me talk to you. Let me holler at you real quick. Let me come in this room with me real quick. I just gotta talk to you real quick. I was, privately, I don't wanna, talk in front of everybody else. Yo, why the fuck? Boom! Like he just teed off on this nigga. He just hooked off on this nigga. He was tired. The nigga would just ignore it. You've been talking shit about me for years, nigga. And I finally got you. You've been able to talk mad shit about me in the motherfucking newspaper, son. You've been talking mad shit about me in the press. Mad shit. And I ain't do shit. I ain't respond in the press. I just kept working. Because I knew one day I was going to see your ass, son. I knew one day I was going to see you and I was going to beat your ass. That's the reason why I ain't never say nothing. I ain't say nothing. And even tonight, I ain't say shit to you. I dapped you up. I shook your hand. And then I invited you to the room and I beat your ass. That's it. It's the most gangster shit I read. This is the most fly shit I fucking read, son. Like, this nigga, he kept it so G. He let this man talk however he wanted to talk about him, son. He let him talk like, yeah, I know. Imagine, it's no different than today, yo. You don't think these rappers and all of them, they be responding to academics and them. They be responding. So imagine, this dude is talking cash shit about you, son, every time you drop. Every time you in a play, every time you do a production, every time you do anything, son. Here come this big egghead ass nigga talking mad shit about you, son. And you keeping it tall, like you keeping it G, like, you know what? I'm not gonna say nothing. Because I know when I see that man, I'm gonna see that man, son. I know when I see that man, I'm gonna beat that man. And that's exactly what he did. That's the reason why I respect it. He didn't even say a word. He kept it silent, son. He kept it P. I'm not about to slander you in the press like you've been doing me. I'm not about to talk about your wife if you have one. I'm not going to talk about your kids if you have them. When I see you, my nigga, understand that it's on, and I'm not even going to warn you. The minute it was on site. And he kept it G. Like, yo, he kept his composure all the way up to the first punch. He shook his hand. Let him shake his wife's hand. Yeah, yo, come into this room real quick. Come into this room. I just gotta holler at you real quick. First of all, this is how you know Sylvester was green. Because any nigga, if we in this room right here, why the fuck we need to go in another room? And you didn't close the door. So what's private about this? See, my hands would have already been balled up. My jaw would have already been clenched, and I would have already been ready for the smoke. I probably would have just hooked off first, because you're not about to invite me to nowhere. We gonna get it on right here. Now, we're not doing that. You feel me? But Sylvester being he do this. He do a lot of this. He doing a yada yip yap. That's what you do. You talk for a living because you couldn't make it as an actor. So now you want to pop shit on me. So now this is what you get. You thought I was sweet. You thought I was a minstrel show nigga. That you thought I was just a coon. Nah, nigga, I'm a real nigga from the Lone Star State, nigga. I'm a real Texan, my nigga. I will beat your ass in here. And that's exactly what he did. And I ain't mad at Dudley whatsoever. I'm not mad at him at all. He handled that shit with grace, if you ask me. If you ask me, Dudley handled that shit with grace, G. Period. I couldn't have handled it any better. At all. I would have ran down on Sylvester for real. But, yeah. So here we go. After the beating, Russell called for the immediate arrest of Dudley, as we've seen. After a quick hearing, the judge ordered Dudley to pay a $1 fine for the assault. Unsatisfied, Russell sued for $5,000 damages. He didn't get it. The judge threw it out. But yeah, this story, listen, this story is epic to me, son. I tell this to children. I tell this story to children, bro. This story is crazy. Because he looked, if you just go off of the look, son, he looked like he talked too much. He, yeah, son, you deserve to get punched in the head, bro. Punch you right in your fat nose, bro. Beat your ass. He beat his ass backstage, man. Yep. So that's the story between Sylvester Russell and Sherman Dudley, man. Great story. Great story. I think that's it. I think this is the book that I was telling y'all about. But I'm gonna keep this joint short. We still got a lot to go over, y'all. All of this we're gonna go over tomorrow. We're gonna go over all of this stuff tomorrow. We got a lot to go over, so yeah. Thank y'all again for tapping in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Everybody subscribe. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the Patreon, make sure you do that right now. Patreon.com is right in the description. Made it much easier if you guys just go ahead and click it. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Become a subscriber tonight, right now. Exclusive content is going to be up there, okay? I got the interview with King Randall that I'm going to be putting on there, and Hotep History Episode 5 will be coming soon. So you definitely don't want to miss any of this stuff because it won't be on any other platform. Subscribe. Patreon.com/Hotep History. You feel me? Make sure that you subscribe and like the video. Thank you. Make sure that you are doing all of the things. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Follow me on Twitter, at Hotep Dubes. Let's go to my page. Right here. There you go. Follow the man. I'm trying to get the 3,900. Let's get the 3,900. You feel me? And then we'll worry about getting the 4,000 in a little bit. But make sure y'all follow me, son. Make sure y'all follow me. Like, I don't know if y'all know, but them news articles that I be posting, the books that I be posting and all of that other stuff, yo, it be taking, that's hours of research that we doing here, fam. So make sure that you tip your favorite Hotep historian, man. Make sure you doing that. Make sure you tapping in. Make sure you always watching. Make sure you gonna be in here. You feel me? I appreciate y'all for coming in here. And as always, I gotta hit y'all with the outro. You know what I'm saying? Well, let me thank a bunch of people. Let me thank everybody that came through. The chat was live tonight, so shout out to A2R, my man Bert, Sammy, of course, Nikki, thank you so much. Memphis 901. Who else we got? Who else we had? The gang was all here. I said Sammy already. I want to say Auntie TOBB is Miss Lisa, so shout out to Miss Lisa for coming through. Thank you, Vincent. There you go. I didn't even see that I earned my 2 target emojis. Shout out to my man Vinny for coming through. You feel me? Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys, man. I'm gonna keep doing this because I know consistency is key. You dig? Consistency is key. So same time tomorrow, 8:30 tomorrow. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna go over everything else that was left in the bookmarks, and then I will see y'all again on Monday. All right. So tomorrow will be the last night for this week. Then you guys will be able to enjoy your weekend and all of that. You dig? So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're liking the video. Make sure you're sharing it. Share the link. Share the link. Share the link. Let everybody know that I exist, that this exists, and I'm here. You dig? So again, you can't have the future without the present, and you can't have the present without the past. And we don't study history to live in the past, but to order our steps in the present so we can positively affect our future. Okay? And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Hotep and Bill.